Detective Lucas Marek stood in front of apartment 407 for the second time in his career. The first time, 3 years ago, it had been a crime scene, a domestic homicide that ended without an arrest. Now it was supposed to be just another locked door in a condemned building. He checked the seal. The yellow tape was still stretched tight, the wax stamp intact. The lock had been replaced with a heavy chain by city order. Everything looked untouched. Yet the report from the maintenance department said the interior lights had turned on the previous night, triggered by a smart switch that no longer had power. "Let's open it," Marek said. The chain rattled as the locksmith cut through. The air that spilled out was heavy, stale, layered with dust. A single lamp glowed weakly near the window, plugged into an outlet that shouldn't have worked. His partner, Detective Rhea Lang, swept her flashlight over the floor. No footprints, no sign of entry. Marek knelt by the table where the previous investigators had marked their final evidence tags. The outlines of old fingerprint powder still covered the wood. But near the edge, one fresh print shimmered under the beam. Untouched, clear, and recent. Rhea exhaled. "That's not possible. This place has been sealed since the case closed." He looked closer. The ridge pattern was perfect, almost staged. "Get forensics here, now." An hour later, the techs confirmed it. The new fingerprint didn't match any officer or worker. Instead, it belonged to Jonas Kerr, the original victim. The same man whose body they'd carried out of this apartment 3 years earlier. Marek stared at the print. "Either someone's copying dead men," he said quietly, "or someone wanted us back here." Rhea looked toward the doorway. "And whoever it is, still has the key." The forensics team packed up after midnight, leaving the apartment quieter than it had been in years. Detective Lucas Marek stayed behind, sitting at the old dining table where the print had been found. The city's nightlight flickered through the half-closed blinds, striping the dust-covered walls. Rhea Lang returned from checking the hallway. No signs of forced entry anywhere. The building manager swears the locks haven't been touched since your last case. Marek nodded, still staring at the table. "And the light switch?" "Wired to the old grid," she said. "The building's power was cut last year. Someone rerouted one line from the meter outside. Neat job, too. Not a squatter." He tapped the table twice, thinking. Then whoever came in here knew exactly how this apartment was sealed. Rhea glanced toward the taped-off bedroom. "You remember what happened here, right? Kerr's case never fully closed. We had prints from him on everything, but no trace of anyone else. We ruled it a homicide-suicide until the autopsy said the bruises didn't match his own hand size." Marek rose, meaning there was someone else. They walked through the apartment again, flashlights slicing the dark. On the wall near the door hung an old photograph, a city skyline, its glass covered in fingerprint dust from years ago. When Marek lifted it gently, something small fell from behind the frame. A folded slip of paper, sealed in plastic. Rhea picked it up. "Evidence tag?" He shook his head. No number, no initials. Inside was a note written in thin blue ink. "Apartment 407 reopened by court order. Key issued 12:05. She frowned. "That's impossible. No court order like that exists." Marek looked closer. The judge's signature at the bottom was dated 2 weeks ago. "Ralston," he muttered. "Same judge who certified the case closure 3 years back." Rhea's jaw tightened. So the judge reopened the file, but never told anyone. Marek placed the note back in its sleeve. Or someone forged it to make it look like he did. From the hallway, a faint creak echoed. Both detectives turned. The door they had locked earlier now stood open an inch wider than before. No one else was on that floor. Marek whispered, "We're not the only ones inside this building tonight." They drew their weapons and stepped toward the sound. The light from the lone working lamp flickered once and went out.
The dark swallowed the room instantly. Detective Lucas Marek's first instinct was to step away from the window and find a wall. Rhea Lang's flashlight clicked once. Nothing. The batteries had been new that morning. "Rhea?" he whispered. "Here." Her voice was close, steady, but lower than usual. The light came back suddenly, just a thin beam. It caught the corner of the table, then the far wall. The fresh fingerprint was gone. The powdered dust had been wiped clean. "Someone's inside," Marek said. They moved quietly toward the hallway. Every door stood open now. The kitchen, the bedroom, even the small utility closet that had been sealed with a nail the forensics team hammered in hours earlier. Rhea aimed the beam down the hall. There! A shadow crossed the wall, tall and fast. They both moved. The sound of shoes on dust echoed through the stairwell before fading into the lower floors. Marek reached the landing and stopped. The exit door was still chained from the outside. Whoever ran couldn't have left that way. Back upstairs, Rhea stood by the window, breathing hard. "That wasn't a ghost story," she said. "I saw him. He went straight through the hall." "Description?" "Male, maybe 40, wearing gray coveralls. Looked like—" She hesitated. "Like one of the old maintenance uniforms from before this building shut down." Marek checked the light switch again. The breaker had been flipped manually, not tripped. He crouched beside the wall socket, tracing the cable. A small device, the size of a coin, was wedged behind the outlet, a wireless camera transmitter. He pocketed it carefully. "That wasn't here during the first investigation," he said. "So whoever came in tonight wasn't just moving around," Rhea said. "They were watching." Marek's phone buzzed. One message, no sender ID. "Don't chase what's already solved." He showed her the screen. "Judge Ralston," she said quietly. He nodded. "It looks like his phrasing. He used that exact line at the last press hearing." They stood in silence. Down the hallway, the air vent rattled once, like a deep breath drawn through metal. Marek looked toward the dark apartment. He said, "The print brought us back, but that wasn't the real clue." Rhea frowned. "Then what is?" He turned the coin-sized device over in his palm. The tiny lens still blinked red. "It's the camera that was watching who would return first." Detective Lucas Marek and Rhea Lang left the apartment just before dawn. The chain on the outside door stayed cut, but Marek locked it anyway, more habit than reason. The sun had barely touched the skyline when they reached the precinct, both carrying more questions than evidence. The surveillance tech met them in the basement lab, half awake and holding a cup of coffee. Marek handed him the small camera. "I want to know where it's been broadcasting." The tech plugged it into an isolated system. Within seconds, a feed list appeared. 8 total receivers. Only one was active. "Source terminated 4 hours ago. But look here, every upload bounced through the courthouse network. The connection ID belongs to Judge Ralston's private terminal." Rhea stared at the monitor. "So he wasn't forged. He really reopened the apartment." Marek folded his arms. "Then why watch it?" The tech opened one of the last saved frames. The image was grainy but clear enough. The living room of apartment 407, time-stamped the night before. A figure stood by the table, gloved hands on the edge, leaning toward the camera. Rhea leaned closer. "Pause there." The man looked directly into the lens. For a heartbeat, his face was lit by the lamp's reflection. Older, sharp-featured, familiar. Marek whispered, "That's Jonas Kerr." "The victim?" the tech asked. "He's supposed to be dead," Rhea said. The technician backed away slightly from the monitor. "If this footage is real, then that was filmed less than 12 hours ago." Marek exhaled. "Or someone used a deepfake rig to make it look that way." The tech shook his head. "No, this isn't synthetic. It's an analog feed, old equipment.
The lens distortion, noise levels, this was live. Rhea rubbed her temples. So the victim either never died or someone's impersonating him for a reason. Marek took a crin out of the frame and slipped it into a folder. We need to talk to Ralston. He's the only one who could have issued a new access order. They reached the courthouse by 8 a.m. The clerk said the judge hadn't come in yet. His car was still parked outside, covered in a thin layer of rain and dust. Marek looked through the windshield. A brown envelope rested on the driver's seat. Marek opened the door carefully. Inside the envelope was a single photo, the same image of Jonas Kerr from the apartment feed, and a line written across the bottom in blue ink. Case reopened by request. Evidence will replace memory. Rhea read it twice. He's warning us, or confessing. Marek looked at the courthouse entrance where the lights inside flickered weakly. Either way, he's next.
Judge Ralston's office sat in silence when they entered. The blinds were closed, one lamp on the desk flickering the same way the one in apartment 407 had. The clerk had left moments before, saying the judge had arrived early but never came back from his chambers. Detective Lucas Marek pushed the door open. The air smelled of old paper and static. On the judge's desk lay a small portable hard drive, a half-drunk cup of coffee, and a court file stamped 407. Rhea Lang scanned the room. No sign of struggle, no signs at all. Marek opened the folder. Inside were photos from the original homicide, the blood patterns, the body, the evidence tags, and a new image slid out from the bottom. It showed the same apartment that morning, shot from the exact camera angle they'd reviewed in the lab. At the bottom of the photo was a timestamp, 7:42 a.m. 2 minutes before they had arrived at the courthouse. Rhea stepped back. That's impossible. Forensics hasn't even processed the site again. Marek turned over the last page. A single fingerprint had been pressed into the paper in faint gray powder. The ridge pattern matched what they'd found on the table. Jonas Kerr's. Ralston had this before we ever reopened the case, he said quietly. Her phone vibrated. A message appeared on the lock screen. Do not remove evidence. Case will auto-update. The text vanished before she could take a screenshot. Marek connected the portable drive to his laptop. A single file appeared, labeled 407 Mirror Record. When he clicked it open, it played silent security footage of Ralston's office from an hour earlier. The judge sat at his desk, writing a note. He looked tired, almost resigned. Then he set down his pen, turned toward the camera and said, no audio, just lips forming the words clearly. They never die. The system keeps them alive in record. He stood, switched off the lamp, and walked out. The file ended there. Rhea whispered, so Kerr wasn't alive. He was regenerated by the record itself. Marek closed the laptop slowly. And whoever controls that record decides who exists. They sealed the drive in an evidence bag. When they left the office, every computer in the courthouse lobby flickered once and displayed a short message in white letters. Case 407 updated. Primary record restored. Marek and Rhea stopped at the doors, watching as the message repeated, line after line. Rhea exhaled. Do you think it's over? He shook his head. No, it's archived.